Alright, so in this lecture we'll learn about loops. Like how does a loop works? What is the role of a loop? Alright, so let me give you an example before starting. First of all, if I create here a script and try to print document.write statement with the string nothing, and here, as you can see, it's been printed. Now, if I want it to be printed 100 times, I have pasted now, and you can see it running here. Okay, so if I put the break BR, then you can see a break here. Alright, but now, with the help of loops, it can be quite different. By using loops, we can do this work very easily. Like, we can do it in a repetitive manner without having to do anything manually. Like, if you want to repeat any statement a certain number of times, then we can do it with the help of loops. We have some types of loops like the while loop, the do while loop, the for loop, the for each loop, etc. So with the help of loops, the first thing we have is initialization. So we first have the initialization. How will we do the initialization? Let's see how. So first I write var a equal to 20 and then I'll save it. This is my initialization. After doing the initialization, we have a condition. I wrote while, clicked on while statement, and will make the condition here. For example, I put 1 here and I make a condition that a is less than or equal to 100. Now I'm printing a statement, document.write, with string hello, and I save it. Look here, we see that nothing is printed. Alright. The reason why it didn't print, it's because when we make the loop, we have 3 things. The first is the initialization. This is my initialization. We always have 2 conditions, like true or false. If our condition is false, then it will be out of the loop. If it's true, then we'll have 2 things, either increment or decrement. Okay, so we already talked about increment and decrement before. If I write a equal to a plus 1, this means that we have like an increment. Our statement will be true. If the statement is true, then we'll see an increment. So can you see? Like my statement has been printed here 100 times. It means that my statement has been printed till my statement was true. And when it started false, then it stopped from being printed. So the moment we get a false condition, we exit the loop, we exit the while loop. Okay, so I put the BR tag here, so it has a break here, and here I'm saying a equal to 1, and here I made a condition that a is less than or equal to 100. It shows that it's been printed till it reaches 100. So if I replace it here with 99 and save it, then it's been printed twice. Okay, so once it is 99 and the other is when it is 100. Like when the statement go beyond 100, then it is wrong, and this is this is how we can print our statement. That's basically how it works. Okay, so here for example we can include like more things, we can include some additional things here. I wrote a, I put a bracket here, I put plus here, I replaced it with 1, and it started printing like this till 100. Okay, so we put space here, and yeah, like we got a difference. So when the value got 100, like when the value reached 100, it stopped. Everything stopped. If I replace, let's say 100 with 110, then it runs till 110. So that's basically how the while loop works. It keeps on running and running and running until it reaches like a certain threshold, until it reaches a certain limit. Alright, and now on to the next lecture. Alright, so in the previous lecture we learned about how we can print the statement several times by using the while loop. But in this lecture, we'll learn about the do-while loop. So basically, there's just one difference between the while loop and the do-while loop. First of all, I'm doing the initialization of my loop. So I'll say a equals to 1 and I save it. This is the initialization. Now, I write do and I click on do while loop statement. This is how we got our statement. Okay, now I'll put some words in the document.write, typing MetaBrains, and I save it. Okay, now see, I did not do any increment or decrement, and yeah, still my MetaBrain has been printed because of the do while loop. So despite of not having done any increment or decrement, we still have the MetaBrains being printed out because of the do while loop. So basically, the difference between the do while and the while loop is that in the while loop our condition gets checked, then our loop starts. But in the do while loop, the statement we have printed, it will run first, and after that our condition will be checked. So we first run this statement, and after that our condition will be checked. Okay, so now I'm making a condition. So I'll make a condition of a is less than or equal to 20. I save it, and now you can see that my document is continuously running. The reason why this is happening is because we did not do any increment. So now I'll close this document and open it again, but still it keeps on running. Alright, so the solution is that I'm doing an increment. In the last lecture we saw the increment differently. So previously I identified my increment with a++. So we can define the increment with a equals to a plus 1 or a++. Now, the statement will not run, so we'll have to close it, and now it's finally running according to my condition. Alright, now have a look at MetaBrains. I'm putting a plus and a small bracket, and now as you can see it's been printed 20 times. When it went above 20 it stopped printing, as my loop condition was till 20. Alright, so the only difference between the do while loop and the while loop is that in the while loop, the condition will be checked first, and then we would have to do the increment. But in the do while loop, once the statement has been printed, then the condition will be checked, and lastly, we'll have to do the increment. Alright, so that's basically how it works. That's basically how the do while loop works. And now on to the next lecture. Alright, so in the last two lectures, we learned about the while loop and the do while loop, but now we learn about the for loop. So let's see how we can use it and why we should use it. Alright, so let me create a syntax of the for loop, and as you can see it automatically shows all the syntax of the for loop in my VS Code. So the benefit of VS Code is obviously, as you can see, that it generates the syntax for us. So it does like lots of the hard work for us. So we just have to click on like some predetermined syntax which VS Code offers to us. Alright, so now I'm removing this, as we have no such need right now. So let's talk about the for loop. Mostly developers use for loop instead of the do while loop or the while loop. So I'm telling you the reason why they use the for loop. Let me show you actually why. So first of all, var a equals to 1. Now make a condition of a is less than or equal to 10. Do an increment of a++ and save it. Now I'm typing document.write and printing my statement with the string hello world. Now my hello word has been printed 10 times. Now here I want to help you understand like why mostly developers use the for loop. So let me open my while loop as well. And here, as you can see, the while loop, I'm replacing it with 10 and I save it. So I've split my screen now. This is my for loop syntax and this one is my while loop syntax. In the while loop, I did the initialization, and after that I made a condition, and then I write document, and then I implemented it. So this was our while loop syntax, which is like a little bit lengthy, I would say, for developers. However, in the for loop, I did this work with just 2 lines of code rather than 4 lines. So with the use of just 2 lines, we were able to do the same thing to achieve the same result. I did the initialization, as you can see, then I gave it the condition, and then I implemented it in just 1 line. Alright, and then I printed my statement, and yeah, so basically, as you can see, it gives us the same thing. Alright, so that's the reason why developers use mostly the for loop and not the other ones. Alright, yeah, basically because it saves them a lot of time, it's more compact and convenient. Alright, so that was it for the for loop, and now on to the next lecture. Alright, so now let's explore the topic of nested loop in this lecture. So nested loop is all about making loops in loops, which means that we're making a loop again and again inside the loop, and we're printing the statement. Alright, so I will use one loop, and I will print my numbers in different lines. Okay, so as you can see, I'll display 1 to 10, then after 10 our statement will move to the next row till 20, and so on. Okay, so firstly I'm making the for loop, after that I'm deleting this context, I'm putting var a equals to 1, then I'm making a condition of a is less than or equal to 100, and I save it. Now, I will do the increment. Previously I used to do a plus 1, meaning that I'm adding 1 after every value, but now I wanted to add 10 after every value, that's why I'm putting a plus 10. Alright, so let me run this function for you. I'm printing my statement, document.write, with the name a and putting a break, 1, 11, 21. Every line is showing as expected, but I want first line 1 to 10, then the next line to be 11 to 20, then the next line is 21 to 30 till 100. But for this I need to use a nested loop. Okay, so we'll make a loop into a loop. So right now I'm deleting this line, and here I'll make another loop in this for loop. So I'm copying it, I'm pasting it. So now replacing var a with var b, which is equal to a. This means that my var b is equal to a, and I'm making a condition that b is less than a plus 10, which means that I have made a condition and implemented in it. Along that, I incremented b again and again. Okay, so this means that I'm printing after every variable. Okay, so nothing is displayed here because I didn't add document.write statement. Okay, let me explain again. So what's happening? I made a variable b which is equal to a, and this means basically that the value a and b is similar, i.e. 1, and then I made a condition that the value of b is equal to 1, so 1 will be added with 10, and after that I'll print the value of b in the document.write. I save it, and as you can see my value has now been printed. I'll add the concatenation of plus and break, and now you can see that it's showing in one line, but if we want to show it in a different line, we'll use the document.write statement and we'll use the break. Now my values are displaying in one line. If I remove this equal, still it's not displaying because there was a mistake apparently. So I've put the break here, that's why it's happening. When I remove and save it, it's showing one line. If I add a space, it's showing a space there. And as you can see, in this way we can print our numbers.